Hi. I'm Levon, I'm not a luthier, and I'm here doing vintage instrument repair and custom builds, making videos about once a week. So if you're into that kind of thing, subscribe.
Okay friends, I've got a bathtub full of projects over here, and in light of recent political events, I've decided I'm going to fix one of these guitars in particular. Let's have a look. Canada has always been a country with less money than the United States, and so we have had much lower quality instruments because we just didn't have the market to supply high quality instruments. There weren't enough rich people to buy fancy stuff. So I can think of some examples. There was a particular Hagstrom I used to own called an H20, I think it was. I don't remember the exact model number, but it was just for the Canadian market. And basically they removed features that were on every model just for the Canadian market to make a cheaper one. The only thing that springs to mind is that the tailpiece, instead of having their classic Hagstrom Tremar, I think they called the tremolo tailpiece, they had a solid stop tail. But the same goes for Canadian Depression era guitars. They were really, really low quality. But what we've got today is post-Depression, and it's sort of middle of the road.
You got your dead skunk in the middle of the road. Dead skunk in the middle of the road. Dead skunk in the middle of the road. Sneaking to high heaven.
A lot of you probably watch Ted Woodford's channel. So you've probably heard of these or seen these before. This is a Arthur Hensel. Unfortunately, somebody started to rip out that tag. That's sad. But yeah, we've got a cool fire stripe pickguard. The guy who sold this to me was like, oh, Hensel was crazy. He put those stickers in there to separate because he didn't want to hurt the sound of the instrument, but these are clearly much later. Inhale and some sort of like raw fish. We've got a nice Brazilian rosewood fingerboard, the classic carved out headstock here, and pretty wide grain spruce. Very wide grain, but it's crack free. And I don't know what that bridge is made out of, but it appears to have a phenolic saddle, which I believe is original. And we've got a mahogany body. The back has seen a lot of scratches. Not exactly that pretty. The neck, also mahogany with a dark grain fill. And we've got this flat headstock that's sort of common to these. These tuners are not original, but hopefully they function properly. They spin very easily, which is either a good thing or a bad thing. The guitar, here, there's only one string on there, but you can see it needs a neck reset. That's going to be our main operation today. The frets are original and they're quite low, but they're in nice shape. So hopefully the neck is straight, and all we have to do is a neck reset and call it a day. I hear some bridge pins in there. Let's see if we've got a full set. One in the bridge already. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh, it sounds like we got a full set. Here is a good illustration of the neck angle as it currently sits. Ideally, it would be close to touching all of the frets when it's touching the top of the saddle there. A good piece of news, though, is that the neck is pretty straight. There's even some fall away at the end of the fretboard here. All right, enough effing around with due diligence. let's release
the hound.
the fingerboard extension and get to work removing the neck. I keep forgetting that I need to build a stand for my iron so it will sit up straight without Mickey Mousing like this. All right, that's been on there a few minutes. Let's see if we can wiggle this guy under there at all. Promising. Ooh, hello. I think I will put a little bit of tape there to protect it. I'm going to overdo it, so I'm going to put the heat back on now. And wait a little while and keep going. Now 1/3 session to heat up the rest of the overhang, and then it should be loose, and we can drill for the heat sticks to remove the neck. Now, as I mentioned, Ted Woodford has worked on a few of these, and so I just scoured his YouTube channel for a few Hensels, and I found one where he removed the neck, and here I'm going to show you how that turned out, and you can see that it's got a really narrow, straight dovetail, and so that's going to help me determine where I'm going to drill my holes. I think I could even go at the top of the dovetail at the 12th fret. That might be an interesting place to do it. Usually I go 13th, yet to be determined. So I'm just gonna drill at the 12th fret and try to catch the top of the dovetail. First, I'm actually gonna spend about 10 minutes cleaning till I find my fret pullers, or as long as it takes. Always put your crap away. I'd say that these fret pullers / nippers is probably the single most important tool in my workshop. And I didn't put them away this time, so now I shot myself in the foot.
Extremely frustrating, it's extremely frustrating, and no one to blame but myself.
I decided to look downstairs and not finding them, so I'm gonna make a cup of coffee and see if that helps.
Editing leave on here, I still haven't found them. Let's get back to it.
Well, I couldn't friggin' find them, so I'm gonna use these crappy little ones I used when I first started out. Got a bit of a loose end over here, so hopefully I can do it without mangling the fret. Ooh. I don't like this. It's coming. Luckily, this is just one fret. All right, we did it. Mostly. Okay. Now I am gonna score the finish. Ooh, that's not going very well. So I'm doing it anyway. And I am just literally eyeballing it. I will go inwards. That one's even better. Great. Might have been a little on the narrow side. All right, I got my heat sticks in there. They're both set to around 4 out of 10 or whatever.
I got my heat sticks in, heat to 4 of 10. Taste is gonna move ya.
And I got my little tiny bottle of water here. And now we're gonna do a little bit of waiting. Oh, it's sizzling already, that's nice. I should have a neck puller jig, but I don't. I just wiggle. It's worked so far, but maybe I'll make one soon. We're 10 minutes in now. I got a little wiggle out of the neck, but it's not showing enough promise to keep putting pressure on it, so the heat sticks are back in, a little bit more water in there, and we'll keep an eye out. You know I'm flexing that ME50 at all times, yo. Ooh, just burned myself flexing. You can see there's some wiggle here. We're getting there. Yeah, boy. Okay, I'm feeling optimistic. Oops. Feeling optimistic that this is going to be loose enough now. I'm going to pull these out, put them safely over here, and see if this comes out. Oh, yes. Yep. You can see, well, can't really see, but you can see there's a little gap here. It's coming. There is a fair amount of glue on the cheeks, which is not helping. Oh yeah. Here it comes. Yep. Sick. Sweet. Check it out. I pretty much nailed the location of those holes. Not too bad anyway. Here you can see the scorch marks on the dovetail. Not terrible, but also you can see that there's a bit of a metal T bar reinforcement in there. That's interesting. Didn't expect that. See, there's some glue on the cheeks. That did not help with the removal. Yeah, more glue here. And we did lose the end of the dovetail in the pocket there, buried in a puddle of glue. The soundboard feels thick. Like it feels like about 3 millimeters thick. Let me show you the bracing. You got a rather classic bracing. Look at the two tone bars right next to each other. That's interesting. And the bridge plate is well placed. Now tapping the top, it's not super inspiring. A lot of guitars, you'll feel the vibration through the whole guitar and you know it's like well made and it's under tension, but this one is sort of monotone and not that lively. Now, in case you're watching this in the future and it's no longer relevant news, recently the President of the United States, out of the blue, decided to put tariffs on Canada, and the impact that had on Canadians, at least briefly, was a little bit more national pride. And all the parties, at least briefly, teamed up to come up with retaliatory tariffs. It's dumb. We had no interest in tariffs. We've been great trading partners with the US for decades, and it was absurd and stupid and had no motivation. It wasn't like, hey, do this or I'll put tariffs on you. It was just like, hey, I'm an idiot. Here's some tariffs. Let me fuck over our economy and your economy for absolutely no reason. And so that's why I'm working on this Canadian guitar, because there's a resurgence in Canadian pride. I'm not a prideful Canadian because I don't really believe in nations. I don't believe they're real. I'm happy that we have socialized healthcare and other benefit structures that work to help people in need. That is something to be proud of. But our country as well is the product of many atrocities against the First Nations or indigenous people of the lands. And so it's hard to be proud of a nation that is the result of imperialism and genocide. But hopefully over time, we can rectify that as much as possible. This actually goes a lot smoother when the camera's not directly in my face. Okay, here you can see how I carved out the inner parts of the cheeks here. And now I will begin passing the sandpaper underneath with it fit to the body. The joint fit is actually too tight for me to get sandpaper under there with it in place, so I'm going to have to clean off the dovetail a little bit before I can continue. Okay, I haven't even been going for that long, and you can see I've got about 3/4 of a millimeter gap here at the heel, and when I pull that down flush with the body, we are getting a straight edge that actually is looking really good. The angle is looking pretty good, but we're going to go a little bit beyond. I'm not afraid to make a new saddle, but also we need to factor in the fact that once there's tension on here again, the geometry of the entire body is going to shift a little bit. And so we're going to shoot for an angle off the frets that comes above the current saddle, and then assume once there's tension on it that it will come down a bit. And here you can see the material that's sanded away and how there's more of a cheek contact here. We're almost done with this. Just a little bit more with our 220 grit PSA. Undersetting a neck a little bit is kind of a disaster because it means you need to do it all over again. But if you overset the neck just a little bit, all it means is you're going to put in a higher saddle. So it's better to overset it than underset it. Now it's really pretty subtle how much you need to take off to make a big difference. Here we're probably at a hair over a millimeter now, and we want tight gaps everywhere. Might have to do a little bit of touch-up work there. There's a hair of space under the heel. And then we tighten up the dovetail by shimming it with some hardwood. Now you can observe, with the neck pushed in against the body, our projection is above the saddle by about 2 to 3 millimeters. That seems like a dramatic overset, but once we have tension on the body and neck, this will come down quite a bit. We shall have to find out. It's extremely important that you take the same amount off each side, otherwise you're going to create tilt in the neck. So I'm going to double check that our neck is still pointing straight to each pinhole by running a piece of yarn from the nut to the E strings. We are a little too far on the treble side, so we're going to take a little more material off the base side of the heel, because that's a little too close for comfort over there. It's right on the edge. It doesn't help that the nut slot is right on the edge, and it is pretty straight, but we want a little bit more. Okay, I genuinely just pulled my 80 grit through the base side 4 times, and we're all evened up. All right, here we got a bin of veneers, and we're gonna take this top piece, a little bit of maple, and shim the dovetail. Okay, we're gonna start with what is probably about a 1/2 millimeter, maybe 1/3 of a millimeter of maple, and we're gonna put one on each side of the dovetail and work our way from there. Here are the shims. Just need to glue those on. I'm going to use Tight Bond, aka wood glue. All right, there they are, clamped on. Now we wait. Well, I just looked in my refrigerator. Yep, we call them refrigerators here in Canada. I just looked in my refrigerator for my hot hide glue. It's cold hide glue at the time, and there ain't none. So I gotta mix up some more. I'm gonna show you the exact process. Now pay close attention, because this is an exacting science. Take some hide glue granules, put them in a jar. Take some water, exactly this amount, and you're done. Here it is. Put it in your glue pot and wait. All right, see if this fits. All right, so it's good and tight, meaning obviously we need to take material off, but that's good. It means we got enough shim on there, and then some. First round has really nice, even coating of chalk everywhere. It just means everything needs to be thinned out a little bit. That's great. Sandpaper, piece of wood, go to town. After a few rounds of fitting, we are most of the way in. All right, it's in there nice and tight. We're gonna have to make a little shim for the overhang and double check our straightness. We are good. And so yeah, just need to make a shim and then we'll be ready for glue. You might be wondering how tight you make this, and it's tight to the point where I can't push it all the way in, but if I clamp it or smack it, it will go in. And so, yeah. that all the way in so I can determine the shim size. Now, of course, considering the geometry under tension, we don't want to make the shim exactly what we're coming up with here. We want to make it slightly thinner because it's also okay to have some fall away above the 12th fret anyway. So, looks like we'll probably go for a 2mm shim, tapering down to 0. Okay, it's that moment of truth, the neck gluing in. Here you see the consistency of the hot hide. Use a nice warm molasses, and we will just put a little bit inside this dovetail. I've probably mentioned this before, but on a well-fit dovetail, you don't need any clamps. It should be tight enough that it's self-clamping. And let the glue crystallize. I did not glue in the overhang yet because you can do that afterwards. I did it shortly afterwards. Alrighty, the neck is on. And I rammed the 12th fret back in, and now I'm just going to clean up everything. There's a little bit of excess glue that I got on here, and I'm going to clean the whole guitar because it hasn't been cleaned yet. I feel like that set of strings I set aside for it were probably extra lights, which on this well-built, and by well-built I mean heavily built guitar, I think I'm going to try a set of 12s instead. Okay, as I mentioned, I overset the neck. Meaning I need to put in a higher saddle. It's kind of sad to get rid of the original phenolic saddle, and I will obviously keep it, but putting in a new saddle isn't the worst thing. Plus we'll have higher action and be able to drive this guitar a little more. I think that's a good lesson though, how little difference there is between an overset and an underset on a neck reset. Really, the gap in the heel was like a millimeter. Previously it had been like half a millimeter, and that went from underset to overset. Actually, this is a pretty soft plastic. I don't even think it's Bakelite or phenolic. I think it's just straight up plastic. Not sure. Of course, I look for my skinniest blank, so there's the least amount of work to do to get it to fit the slot. So this is the one. Well, looky here, I got some strings on, but I still need to do a final setup. The saddle isn't quite where I want it. The nut is still very high, and the frets are gonna need some work. It's not quite level, but here's a little sample. That's a song by my buddy Mike Oneill from the Inbreds, Canadian AF. And now I'm gonna finish the setup here. Actually, it's my daughter's Valentine's Day dance tonight, so I'm gonna put off any further work on this Hensel until tomorrow. She said I'm giving Beetlejuice. Okay, now that the saddle's out and the strings are off, we're gonna work on the frets. A lot of them have popped up and they're very small frets to begin with, so we don't want to level the out of them because there won't be enough left, and then we'll might as well just do a refret. So we're gonna look with one of these fret rockers, and when we find a high one, diagnose why it's high. Because you can see, here's the 3rd fret, it's popping up. You can see the 5th fret is popping up. You can see the 7th fret is popping up. You can see a lot of frets are popping up. And so we're gonna start by trying to secure them with just a few taps of the hammer. If that doesn't work, we'll go to bigger extremes. And by extreme measures, I just mean super glue. Nope, nothing yet. Okay, so obviously this will go a lot better if there's not a bunch of dirt under the fret. So we're gonna clean that out. Okay, I glued a bunch of frets in. My voice is a bit deeper, got a touch of a cold. Oh yeah. I need to finish shaping the saddle. It's at the right height, but now it just needs to look good. I'm going to level, crown, and polish the frets. Now that they are glued in and reasonably flat with my little rocker ruler thing. There are still some high points, but we're gonna take care of that with a leveling. Let's go. If you've been here before, you know I level with a literal level, and we're gonna do the same today. Starting off with a low grit, like a 120 here. And then we'll move to a higher grit and change our motion to this. An important question here would be, hey, don't you want to level that under tension? And the answer is generally yes. You want to level under tension or using one of these neck jigs, But this one had the exact same profile with and without string tension on it, so I don't have to think about it. Now these are tiny frets, so I'm not sure this file will work, but we'll get it started. Maybe knock down the edge. Yeah, it's just riding on the tapes. We're gonna have to go triangle file. Sometimes you really just don't feel like doing this job, and now is one of those times. So I am going to start a different project right now and leave this fret crowning for a little later. I've got the tiniest bit of a hangover from the dance last night. I only had 3 beers throughout the course of the night, but I guess that's a little too much party for me. It's now Super Bowl Sunday and I don't give up, so I'm going to finally get these frets crowned and polished. Okay, got the saddle in. Stringing it up. We're gonna need some work at the first fret. The action's very high there, so we'll have to carve down the nut. Okay, across the board we've got 1 millimeter action at the first fret, which is crazy. We want half of that at best, or at worst. So I might take some material off the entire nut instead of deepening all the slots. That did not go well. I thought this was all just dirt here, but it turned out to be adhered to the nut. So I might glue that back on and slot it after all. I don't know what kind of plastic this is, but it smells terrible. It smells like rubber. I know it's not rubber, but that's the smell it gives off when you file it. It's gross. It's not phenolic. Well, here we have it, folks. A guitar. Started out as a guitar, now it is a guitar that you can play. And being that I generally work on acoustic guitars from, say, the 1880s through the 1920s, this is a very different beast. It is much heavier build. And even though it's much larger than most of the guitars I work on, it's not that loud. Owing, of course, to its heavy build. So it's, instead of being like a big dreadnought strummer, it's kind of missing some bass, it's missing some mid. It's very treble heavy. So it becomes more of a fingerstyle guitar, I guess. It does have nice sustain. It rings out for quite a while. Here's just some chords.
recorded a whole song for the end, but just in case I need to delete it for some reason, I'm just going to play a few more demos here, some more chords and fingerstyle. The guitar is warming up to the strings. My child is loudly coughing. But anyway, yeah, it's sounding better now that the strings have been on for a little while. It was sounding a bit green at first. Wow. Extremely cool guitar. Happy to finally have worked on a Hensel, and happy to be doing my part to increase Canadian solidarity. I know actually a majority of my audience is from the United States, and I have lived there extensively actually. I spent probably a total of about 10 years living in the US, outside of DC and in Washington State. And so I do have experience on both sides of the border. I'm not coming at this from a fully skewed Canadian perspective. But yeah, what's happening in the US right now is really disturbing. The government is being dismantled, and I think the entire world is very worried, and mostly I'm very worried to you, my American brothers and sisters, that your lives won't be disrupted too horribly by all of the incredibly irresponsible and frankly stupid things that are happening down there. So my wish is for stability in the US and eventually healthcare. Why not? It's not socialism to provide healthcare to your people. Every other civilized nation does it. It's normal and helpful, and it makes it so you can live your life not in fear of going to the doctor. So, thank you for watching, and I hope everything turns out.
Telling me more and more about some useless information, trying to mess my imagination. When I'm watching my TV, and a man goes on to tell me how wide my shirts can be, but it can't be a man, 'cause he doesn't smoke the same cigarettes as me. Riding